No, it's too late.
Can you change
You
my
had your minute.
can you change my name?
Can I change it? Yes, I can change your name.
Okay, Simon.
Rename.
Wait, I'm
Oh,
gonna run
oh,
for bottles of mezcal. Give me a
okay.
second.
You run. You run. But this way, people can start coming in, and yet they're not coming in. Maybe we did give everybody the wrong URL. Oh, that would suck. Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay.
Wait. Oh, I got props today. I got props
I
for
got
the.
mad props for you,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, yeah. But wait, I'm gonna disappear for a second. I need to bring them close to me. They're
Okay.
the best props, and I think we're gonna be finally gonna be able to make a point that we've always tried to do, and we've been never able to do
I am
precisely.
fascinated. I didn't know there was anything we always tried to do.
No,
We just,
there is one thing we constantly go to. I think.
okay, grab it. Grab it.
Okay, but China wrote that she tried to got into the
I
link
sent
and
her, yeah, I don't, maybe I didn't send everybody the right
ay,
login.
joven, joven,
I
joven.
don't know. I don't know.
Props, props. And I think that for the first time, I might be funny.
For the first time, but that's nice. Okay, hang on a second. Don't
Nyam,
see.
nyam, nyam.
Sent Grande.
Oof. But have you made us live?
Hang on.
Okay, okay, okay. Perdón, perdón, perdón. Qué bonito. Ah, so pretty. Oh, I have a story about egg that looks like that.
Unless it's a positive story, you're not going to tell that story right now.
It is a story. It is a how would you characterize it? In case you're having trouble. Okay,
I don't
how would you
know.
characterize it? I mean, you say this a lot of times. It's a lot of the experience you've had in Mexico is not that you will characterize them as positive, but they were eye-opening.
Yeah, 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 okay, yeah, 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 but still, we are broadcasting, and I don't know, like if you would,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
okay,
I'm trying to
okay,
give you a hard
don't
time.
don't do that. I don't need you to give me a hard time. I've got Mother Nature for that.
Yeah, that's true. You
Yeah,
guys, I remember my time in Japan. I definitely do not miss cold and snow.
yeah. I honestly like I don't I like snow. I like cold. I like snow. It's just this is crazy what's been going on. This is
No, 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 no,
ridiculous.
no. I know, and that's an extreme. But I want to say I don't like even a little bit of cold and a little bit of snow. I don't even like the pleasant version of them.
You were here in February last year. You got some cold, didn't you?
Yes, and and it was cool because it was for 1 week.
Mm, I
And
got you.
even
Okay.
then, I will have so much more preferred that the environment was slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
I
this
hear
is
that.
so pretty. Wow.
And what are you drinking? I left before you could say. I abandoned
Ah.
ship.
No, no, that was for the toast. I was trying something celebratory. I got from the Aguerrido Exansecan guys,
Hmm.
2007 Refugio,
Oh, okay.
2007, 2009. So 4
Hmm.
liters each, but my family already bought all of it. So I was left with 200 milliliters of each.
Nice.
Yes, I'm trying to make my family a lifeline for producers. They've been buying about 6,000 pesos every 2 weeks.
Oh, no kidding. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. They're. I even have a WhatsApp group for a group of cousins, and then a WhatsApp group for another group of cousins. So
Hmm.
the more hardcore group of cousins do not look like alcoholics.
Very nice.
Okay, are we starting?
Well, we're still waiting for folks. We're going to wait for folks. I think
Okay.
maybe everybody had some trouble logging in, so we're going to give them a little extra time.
Oof.
And it's not even 8 o'clock yet.
It is not. Oh, it is not. Okay. Yeah, I know why. My all my clocks are 5 minutes ahead. So
You're one of those people.
I'm one of those people. It makes me so happy to get to a place sharp on time. I know that I was there 5 minutes early.
You can do that without tricking yourself. You can just say to yourself, "I'm going to give my like right. I'm going to arrive every." This is what I do. Honestly, is my method is
The
I
Lou Bank method.
the Lou Bank method of how to arrive. I intend to be everywhere 15 minutes early. And in order to ensure that I am, I generally end up at places half an hour early. Um,
Yeah, but you don't have this visual part of it. Do you wear a watch? Do you wear an actual watch?
I used to, but with the phone, it seems like it just seems,
Exactly. But that's
yeah.
that's my point. I've always worn a watch, and there's something about the numbers, not even what they mean, just the visual part of it that makes me react in certain ways. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to see certain numbers on the watch. It's not even that I'm early or late. It's just certain like geometry of the numbers telling me some things.
What does that have to do with 5 minutes ahead? Or
Well,
this is
that
this is just things about Chava.
this is there was this brand of watches at some point that they didn't have numbers, so it
Mhm.
had points for each hour and a bar for the minutes.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting what it made you feel regarding to time. You really thought of time differently, like if it was a bar feeling instead of the actual numbers. And I hated it. I hated it with a passion. It just didn't communicate what I wanted.
Hmm.
Anyways,
Hmm.
that's my story, Lou.
It's a good story. Well, it's an
It's not a
adequate
good.
story. It's a
Yeah, it's
fine,
fine. I was 17
fine.
year old. Like that was
You know what it
fine.
is? You know what it is? It's sort of the Zignum of stories.
The signal was a okay story. Did I tell you that my elementary school friends found me through LinkedIn because of the podcast?
Say that again.
So I
You,
went to an elementary school, and then when I left there, nobody could ever find me because I never got social media until 6, 7 months ago.
oh, sure.
So some kids, you made a post on LinkedIn that had a lot of traction, and some kid contacted me, and it's like you were in elementary school with me.
That's nice. Was it nice for you? Did you enjoy? You could use friends, actually, Chava. This could be good for you, having
Uh,
friends.
it was,
It
you
was
know how.
uncomfortable.
Well, no, not at all. We had a lot of stories to share, and it was
Hmm.
wonderful and it was great. But I think that it made me see, thank the Lord, who I didn't become.
That's funny. Yeah, I get that. I get that. But I,
I,
I am so grateful to Facebook for reconnecting me to so many people that I wouldn't be connected to otherwise. People I went to elementary school with, to kindergarten with, high school,
kindergarten.
kindergarten. Do you not have
Really?
kindergarten?
We do, but we don't talk to those people afterwards. We didn't remember those people. How could you remember someone you went to kindergarten with?
I can't. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I can totally remember kindergarten. My
I,
teacher, her name was Mrs. Best, and she was appropriately named. Oh, she was just the best teacher. It was good. Kindergarten.
yeah, I don't know about that. I've had, I think I prefer myself today to what I used to be. So
Oh, I
every time,
definitely prefer myself, but I find a real beauty in reconnecting with somebody who knew you before. who knew me. I'm going to be specific to me because
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
really
yeah,
just
yeah.
about me. Who knew me before I was the me that I my favorite me, I guess. I like me now a lot more than I liked me then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but having that lifelong connection to someone, that link to the past, I think is a beautiful reminder of where I came from. I love that. I love that.
I don't know about. Yeah, I really like seeing these guys because these were guys that I actually liked that were my friends at the time. We used to play basketball, have beers, you know, like 12-year-old beers and new mix. You know what new mix is?
Mm-mm.
It's a paloma. It's a pre-mixed paloma, and every Mexican that was 12 years old, when I was 12 years old, that's how we learned how to drink.
Hmm. Cool.
Uh, it
That's
was
great for 12-year-olds, and they market it that way.
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that every store we used to go as teenage kids to buy alcohol, I'm
Hmm.
almost sure they will offer it to us.
Wow. Welcome to Mexico. It's funny. I was just putting together our pitches for Tales of the Cocktail, and and as I was putting together the pitch for a webinar about how to do online webinars about drinking, like online tastings.
One of your things was never say that you started drinking when you were underage.
No, no, no.
Oh,
But like
okay.
I started talking about how, you're finding yourself in this odd world that you've never been in before, where you can sell alcohol to go, you can sell cocktails to go and bottles to go, even shots to go in some places.
Shots.
And then I
I like that.
realized, I'm sorry?
I like that.
Yeah,
Shots to go. Okay.
shots to go. And I realized as I was writing this, like Tales of the Cocktail is for an international audience, and really once you get outside of Canada and the United States of America, pretty much everybody else you can sell whatever you want whenever you want to go. Like it's not a big deal, right?
For me, it is hilarious that this is such a big thing in America right now.
Right.
It's almost like, wow, we're being treated like adults. We can't believe this.
Right,
I
right. So
mean,
that's yeah.
like one of my stories of Berlin is somebody giving me a shot on the subway. I was
Oh,
on the subway sitting down, and someone approached me and was like, "Hey, kid, do you want a shot?" It's like, "Absolutely, thank you very much, lady." Like, and that happens all around Europe, Asia. In Japan, you can drink in the street. I will claim that in Japan, if you could find the number of drinks that are consumed on the street versus drinks that are consumed anywhere else,
hmm.
drinking in the street probably takes 45% of the alcohol consumption.
Wow.
Well, or I don't know. I
Okay.
would like to believe so. Actually,
Okay.
I'm not sure of that.
Okay, I think we've wasted enough time talking about drinking. We should start drinking. We should start. Oh my God, you don't have your background's wrong.
What
It's
wasting what?
supposed to be the Mezcal Winter Camp. I'm sorry, yeah, Mezcal Winter Camp.
You didn't send me that.
I didn't send you. I did
I've
send you
been
that. I
I've
sent
been
you that with the notes earlier in the week, Chava.
Jesus Christ. I thought I had been asking for that for the last 15 minutes. Okay.
No.
Give me a second. Give me a
Okay.
second. I'll be
Sorry,
right there.
everybody. Very
Yeah, yeah.
sorry.
It's all my fault. What else? It's because Lou
See,
just
I
sends
can't I
me.
can't remember the name of the session unless it's behind you. That's the only cue I have.
Well, I would love to rename it actually. I would like to name it Mexico is a continent.
Okay, so why don't we get started while you change this out?
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
doing that. Yeah, yeah. Let's start.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, welcome to Mezcal Winter Camp Week 3. Are we all happy campers, Chava?
We are all happy campers,
You're not a
correct?
happy camper. You want to change the name of this week. This week, the subject is the basics around Mexico because we're covering basics in different parts of Mexico. The kind of agave that you're most likely to find in different parts of Mexico being used to make spirits.
Is that really the objective? Well, I will like to rephrase the objective later on, but sure.
Sure, but before we do that, Chava,
Yes.
a word from our sponsor. Today, everything that comes out of my mouth is sponsored by Just Egg because that is how I started my day. Chava is eating Just Egg. I was having heart issues a couple of months ago, Chava.
Yeah, and I think you were trying to blame me for that. I think you were saying that just like
You
I put too
frankly,
much.
frankly, Chava, like you're the thing that's helping me most with my heart problems. Being able to
That's very
connect with you
sweet.
weekly doing stuff is it's really helping my stress. But I was having heart palpitations, and my cardiologist told me that I had to become a vegan. I'm allowed to have fish every once in a while, but that's the only animal product. And I love eggs, and he told me I could have egg whites, but I
Oh,
feel
that's
like
disgusting. That's
it was
no.
not. It's not. I
I do not
disagree.
understand why would a human go for egg whites, but sure. Okay,
I
whatever.
disagree. Like egg whites are good. It's just it's awful to be the person who's literally separating the beautiful yolk from the white, and then I put the yolk to the side and I feed it to my dogs, who I love dearly, but not as much as I love myself. And I want to eat that yolk, and I can't. And it's heartbreaking, Chubb. It's heartbreaking. And I think really breakfast is the best meal of the day, particularly a Mexican breakfast. So I am grateful. I am grateful, Chava, to Just Egg because Just Egg has brought egg back to my breakfast. They are bringing breakfast back, Chava.
Because it doesn't have cholesterol, or why is it good for your
It's
heart? Like what?
plant-based egg. It's
Wow.
plant-based egg. It's like the egg equivalent of all of these plant-based meats that are coming out. So I'm having plant-based egg for breakfast every morning, and I am so happy. And I just want to thank Just Egg. I just want to thank Just Egg for giving me breakfast back. I say it's delicious. Chef Jose Andres calls Just Egg mind-blowing, and Bon Appetit. Bon Appetit says it's so good I feel guilty eating it.
Wow. Okay,
I
it's not
know.
available in Mexico, so I cannot really say anything. But
You can't.
it does look delicious from here. That cup or whatever it's behind you does look pretty. So I'll give it to you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. I'm sorry, before we then move on, if you happen to own a restaurant and you want to bring more plant-based consumers in your doors, hey, try Just Egg. You can get started with a free sample. You can get a free sample by heading to ju.st/hrn. That's ju.st/hrn.
Wow, man.
Okay.
When I want to sell us a house, I'm so gonna hire you.
There you go. Okay, now that we've lost everybody, I want to bring them back for some drinking. We're going to start this week drinking tequila.
Wow, I love this. I'm so happy. I just spent half an hour talking to my. I have a. Do you have that in America? Godfathers. So when you get baptized, do you have a
Yeah,
godfather? It's
yeah, yeah.
okay. That's
The
not just part of the
Godfather.
mob movies
No,
nor anything.
no,
That actually happens. Okay,
that happens. Yeah.
so
I
I
mean,
have a
it's not
god.
as official as it is in Mexico, but they have them here.
Well, here it's a big thing. Your godfather, it's a big part of your life. And
Oh,
my godfather is also my uncle, but he's I have a big family, so my uncle was almost 40 years old when I was 12. So but now I become his agave spirits dealer. So I was telling you that they come to me, they're like, we want to buy a good amount of agave spirits because they are very bored with what they can find in stores. And he told me that he is very tired of some of the more common tequilas that he's been finding around.
hmm.
And it's so interesting because for most Mexicans, when you start talking about what I guess you will describe as specialty tequilas,
Hmm.
it's quite an eye-opening experience in Mexico City specifically, because a lot of even the Mexican brands that sell a lot in Guadalajara, like Cascawin or even Fortaleza, they're not that common in Mexico City.
No, no kidding.
Yeah, it's
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised that they're common even in Guadalajara.
uh, I mean, it's their hometown. It's where they're born.
No,
They
no,
should
no.
be around.
I get that, but like when I talk to people in Mexico about tequila, usually what I'm hearing about is just this filtered stuff now, like the añejos that are filtered so that they're clear.
Ugh, Cristalino.
Yeah, that's a
Ugh.
Cristalino.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Like some brand that I'm not gonna name started throwing a lot of money into cultural and art events. So
Hmm.
they've been serving that left and right, and it's the most annoying part about it. It's like it's I mean it's absolutely meow. It doesn't taste like anything. But the most annoying part is doesn't get you drunk. So they can
Huh?
serve you. Yeah, it's like 35 ABV or something. So they can serve you
Well,
like
hang on a
that's
second.
72
I've seen
proof.
you drunk from beer, and beer is not 35%.
That was 7 a.m.
Okay.
I hadn't had breakfast. I hadn't had my eggs.
Well, you're just
Anyways,
okay. So tequila, right? We're starting with tequila, and why are we starting with tequila?
because it was the first international DO. It was the way people got to learn about agave spirits. It was the
Yeah,
first agave spirit most people in the world drank, even Mexicans.
right. And it is always made from which agave, Chava?
I love this because you're going to say that I'm mispronouncing it when I am pronouncing it correctly. Tequilana beber, blue agave.
I didn't think you pronounced that weird. That's fine. That's
You
good.
say Tequilana Weber, and I say it's Tequilana beber with a V.
Oh, yeah, I didn't catch that. Yes, that okay, fair enough. So why do they use Blue Web? And everybody, you should be drinking now. I don't know
Yeah.
why you're waiting and just looking at these. Just drink your dang tequila. Drink the dang tequila. So why do they use Blue Weber to make tequila?
Well, it's actually I don't know the exact reason why.
I do.
You do? Why
Of
did they
course I do.
choose blue beber over? I
Because it
think
reaches
it's
maturity sooner than any of the other agaves.
yeah, but I think it's a little bit of the Mexican pink. Do you know the story before behind the? Do you understand what I mean when I talk about the Mexican pink,
Mm-mm,
Rosa Mexicano, a
mm-mm,
specific type of pink that is related to Mexico?
mm-mm,
Oh Lord.
mm-mm.
Well, that was a whole strategy of the Mexican government during the World Fairs. So they made a color palette that was connected to Mexicanness. So during the, I'll say starting from after the Mexican Revolution, there was a whole project of how to project Mexico to the world.
Through
And I
colors?
think there was colors, there was drinks, there was food, there was costumes. So
Hang on. Am I understanding you correctly that literally there was a plan to create one, in essence, cultural image that was
uh,
supposed to stand for all of Mexico?
yes, and I think this is super important because the one that won there, it was definitely tequila. And that's why, even costumes wise, mariachi, for example, that is the type of music that most people recognize of being Mexican. And we have a vast diversity of music traditions, but most people just, recognize mariachi. And by the way, I think we should point that out. When we start laughing like we're crazy and we start looking at the screen very closely, it is because we're looking at the questions that they're sending
And
us
Tina has
soon.
already started drinking. She was way ahead of us.
Okay, lovely.
That is why I laughed. Sorry, keep going. Yeah, mariachi. Oh, that is interesting.
So I believe that tequila and tequilana beber and the fact that it was from Jalisco and the whole mythology of Arandas or the highlands of there and all that was part of that national discourse of Mexican identity for the world.
Hmm. Well, the reason that I don't think that's accurate is because I don't believe back in 1893, when the Mexican government brought tequila to the World's Fair here in Chicago, I do not believe that the rules stated it had to be made with Blue Weber. I
No,
think that's something that occurred in like the 70s.
maybe. But just say tequilana beber was chosen because the most efficient agave over the planet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When we talk about the years it takes for these plants to reach maturity,
Mhm.
really what we're talking about is the years it takes them to build up the proper sugar content to reproduce, right?
Well, or to be usable for making alcohol.
Well, it's usable to make alcohol because it's got the sugar content that it needs to reproduce. We're
Where it
just not,
peaks. Yeah, where
yeah,
it's yeah sugar count peaks.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah,
It's ready to right. So
yeah.
the right, so this the Blue Weber is going to peak sooner than any other because it just creates more sugars. It's more efficient at creating sugars than these other agave varietals.
And something else that I might add, I think from all of the other agave species that agave species that I know of, if you were to put 10 different agaves of different species in front of me doing a blind tasting, the one that I'm absolutely sure that I will not miss will be that tequila naveber. It has
Hmm.
a extremely specific presence. You know
Do you
how
do you think that is even the case when you've had La Luna's Tequilana?
I think it
Okay.
is actually
Okay.
for me that was extremely interesting that that the tequilana from La Luna, it was a flavor profile that I recognize that I attached to my years of reckless behavior, and therefore I was not very fond of, because I don't want to go into details, but I had had some physical extenuating experiences attached to that flavor. And this is something
This
that a
is
lot of
another
Mexicans.
reason you don't want to connect with those elementary school classmates of yours.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And a lot of Mexicans will tell you this, that we stopped drinking tequila for 6, 7 years because just the smell of it will make us
It's the same
react.
up here. That's everywhere in the world.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
for me, that the tequilana from La Luna was extremely refreshing and beautiful because it had that note without being over the top offensive. It sort of made me rediscover tequilana beber in a more pleasant way.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so yeah, so if you go to Jalisco, if you go drinking tequila, it's
Oh,
always gonna
wait.
it's always gonna be Blue Weber. Something else that I think is really interesting to talk about here when we're talking about Blue Weber and tequila is so the rule is it has to be made from Blue Weber. It can't be made from any other agave. But if you make a mixto, right?
Ah,
So if you don't call it 100% agave tequila or 100% blue Weber tequila or 100% blue agave tequila, if you just call it tequila, it only has to be made up of the sugars used in fermentation. Only 51% of them have to come from blue Weber agave. The other 49% can come from any other sugar source except another agave.
which is ridiculous, which is wonderful.
Right, which says like, okay, so you think corn is more precious, like corn syrup is more precious than say an
Oh,
arroqueño?
oh, oh, and that's another wonderful thing, that these sugar stores that you're throwing in there to complement for the other sugars, that 49% sugars you're missing, it doesn't even have to be Mexican.
Right,
It can be
right.
sugar cane syrup from Haiti. It
Which
can
made
be,
which made David Suro nuts when we interviewed
yes,
him, right?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and you know, and I think, boy, I really struggle with this because I understand that there's all of this pressure on the tequila region, these five states that comprise the geographic location where you are legally allowed to make an agave spirit and certify it as tequila. That there's all of this pressure on these five states to make enough tequila to satisfy the world.
which is
And
a lot of
so,
tequila.
which is a lot of
Yeah,
tequila.
and I think that's an interesting point too. It's do you know how many million liters do they produce a year?
If you'd asked me last week, I actually was looking at these numbers for something, but I can't
It's
remember
a
off the top.
hundred and something million, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Which is, and just to give a comparison to that, mezcal is not, all the mezcal produced is not even 1%
Right,
of the volume that is produced by tequila, and tequila is done in a small, like in a much smaller geographical area. So
right.
when Lou talks about the pressure that these places have, it's not an exaggeration
Yeah,
whatsoever.
the environmental pressure in order to sustain this supply chain for all of the pallets around the world. So, you know, from that standpoint, particularly since the vast majority of the world is going to be drinking their tequila as like a margarita or some kind of cocktail, you know, I'm reluctant to badmouth the concept of the mixto, and I know that you're opposed to it, and I certainly know David Suro is opposed to it. But if it relieves some of that environmental pressure, I don't know that I'm so opposed to it.
I think actually your concern is misplaced, because I think that it's probably more environmentally aggressive, the industry that produces sugarcane syrup in Haiti and then has to ship that to Mexico. And if you were to measure all those emissions, all their environmental impact, I will think that it's a lot more aggressive than if you were to strain a little bit more the agave fields of tequila.
Hmm. Well, it's a good question. I guess we don't know the answer, but you know what we do know is well, what we do know is if they opened it up so that you could use any other agave for that other 49% of the sugars, you've got between tequila and mezcal, there are only, what is it? I think there's 12 states that are claimed right? That are in the two DOs, which
Mhm.
means you've got another at least 12 states, probably
Well,
more like.
we're 32 states, so you
Right, right, but maybe not all of them have agaves, right? But we know at least another, what is it? Is it 24 total that we're certain are making agave spirits? Or is it
uh,
28?
agave is so flexible and noble that I will claim that you can plant it anywhere
Okay,
in
so
with different efficiencies and with different problems and challenges. But I honestly do not see any state of Mexico that wouldn't be able to grow where you wouldn't be able to grow agave.
think about the economic boon you could do for a state that's not in the DO, like Chiapas, an either DO.
Hey, do not touch chapas.
But think about the like really the financial impact that you could have if instead of going to Nebraska to get corn syrup, you could go to Chiapas and you could get I don't know what they grow down there. Let's say jalapeno syrup.
Sugarcane. Well, okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think tequila has a lot of challenges, and as a content, as an industry, as a, it's also and we're spending so much time on tequila and we're getting all existential and stuff, but I think it makes sense a little bit because I think a lot of the flavors and a lot of the definitely tequila has been the thing that most people have drank the most, so they're more familiar with it. And I think that how it tastes and how it looks and how it's perceived is not by accident. I think it is the consequences of a certain worldview and Mexican view, and I think it is very interesting to be able to see behind it a little bit and to see that some of the flavors that you're finding there are not there by accident. And I think with the tequilana, you can see how that world can expand a little bit. I think that the tequilana from La Luna shows a little bit of the cracks that you can start imagining of the tequila, contemporary tequila world, and how it could probably be a little bit more interesting than we know of.
I feel I
Like,
feel I feel badly that we're talking about that because they don't drink that this week. I think
what?
that's next week that we have the tequilana, or maybe it's in the fifth week. I don't know. At some point, we're doing the tequilana, the La Luna.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, so
Okay.
moving on.
Okay.
Alizi.
So, but what you're drinking, right? Like if you're at Calavera, if you picked up your sets at Calavera, you're drinking Siembra Azul Blanco. That's the substitute because they
Oof.
were unable to get Tequila Grande Vejo Blanco.
Yeah, but
Um,
siembra is awesome.
well,
Siembra is very pretty.
oh yeah, I think they're both beautiful. In fact, they're made by the exact same place.
Oh, really? The
Yeah,
siembra
yeah,
is
yeah. Yeah, it's
the
no,
Grando Viejo and the siembra. Okay,
yeah, are both made at Nome 1414.
from Cascawin.
Oh, is that also Cascaween?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's a nom. That's a Cascawin nom.
So yeah, so it's a Highlands. It's a Highland. The Highlands of Jalisco is where they're located, and it's also, I believe, where they get their agaves. I believe their Blue Weber comes from the estate where it's made. The tequilero is Sergio Cruz, and he is cooking. He's cooking the agave in a brick oven, and it says roasted, but I think it's steamed in that brick oven, isn't it?
I have never visited tequila. Actually, I have to
Okay,
admit that.
okay. Well, we'll do that
Yeah.
sometime. And milled using a roller mill, so an industrial kind of mill, fermented with champagne yeast plus some of the estate
Mm,
yeast in these open steel vats. They use well water. There's no fiber in that fermentation,
mm.
and they use. Well, here's the one deviation between the two. They both start with copper pot stills. And then Grande Vejo has a second distillation in the copper pot still, but if you're having the Siembra Azul Blanco, they instead do the second distillation in a hybrid steel alembic.
Which means a little bit of stainless steel, a little bit of copper,
Yeah,
because that sounds very confusing. Hybrid, like
yeah. I try to be confusing.
I know
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so that's like the most consumed agave in Mexico, and the second most consumed agave is going to be what we drink next. It's your Sombra mezcal, your Sombra Espadin mezcal. Chava, do you know anything about Sombra?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do know a few things about it. I well, would you say it's fair to say that I started my mezcal making career with? Well, I didn't start with them. I
I guess would you say it's fair?
yeah, no. How do I explain this without? sounding extremely confusing. I used to specialize in combustion systems, making flamethrowers for glass blowing and ceramics. And at some point, they hired me and my boss to make the same thing for agave spirits, because you need to use naked direct fire for the distillation of agave spirits according to the NUM. So a lot of
For
people,
artisanal and ancestral, but not for
exactly.
yeah.
So and actually, you know what? I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on that because I think that's one of the most interesting things that agave spirits have to offer when compared to a lot of the other alcohol that we consume. That most
Hmm.
of the alcohol is distilled using steam systems. So
Oh,
the
no.
alembic, the pot where you're separating alcohol from water, it's being heated either by steam, either by water that it's being heated by another source, could be direct fire or whatever. But what it's heating the actual boiling pot where the fermented liquids are, it's water. It's water, steam, or elements, electric elements. And some Japanese whiskeys make a big deal that they use coal that
Hmm.
creates direct fire and touches the sides of the alembic. And I will say that in the mezcal world, around 99% of the producers use direct fire for distillation. And I think this makes a huge difference in flavor profile. I think one of the jokes we used to make about that, it's compare grilled broccoli versus steamed broccoli. I think that's a very
But it doesn't make sense to me why it would be that significant a difference since the fire isn't actually touching the stuff, right? In the
no.
end, you're heating up a piece of metal, and in one or clay,
Hmm.
and in one instance you're heating it up with fire, in the other instance you're just heating up with some other kind of heating element.
Yes, but there's a bunch of differences. First, you can make a lot starker uh, temperature changes when you have direct fire. It's not
Uh,
the same if you want to have steam or you have a more controlled way
it's
of heating.
consistent.
It's
Steam is
consistent,
consistent.
and therefore it takes a little bit more time to make changes because you're changing the whole body, versus when you're using direct fire, you can immediately go from 12 to 100 with a combustion system, and not the whole environment is going to be heating up that fast, but certain areas are going to do that. And the other
God,
thing.
I'm feeling like this is really interesting to me,
Okay,
but
yeah, yeah,
it
no,
might
but
be
yeah.
off topic a bit, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Get okay. Point being, that was my life. That was my life for 5 years of research, and then
And this is my life, people. This is what I put up with. Sorry, go ahead.
for Lou, yeah, and I get really excited about this because I think mezcal is very under researched. Agave spirits are under researched, and there's so much things that are still to be invented and researched and applied that I think will make this spirit be a lot more beautiful in the future, in ways that we don't even imagine today. But the thing is, I did that for Sombra. I started designing their kilns, their distillation kilns or alembics, and then I moved on to do a lot of the research to help them with sustainability issues, how to deal with their binuses, how to deal with their fibers, how to lower their emissions when they were cooking, all that sort of stuff. And what you're drinking now, that is the Sombra, it's a little bit.
They're through it. They've gone through it like 6 times already.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what we're used to do there, and I think it's an interesting spirit because it is a lot of contemporary technology trying to come close to uh, artisanal methods.
Well,
So
not even
it's
trying to. They
well,
do.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Actually, I say trying because there's so many things that are impossible to map in the artisanal processes. So you never are absolutely sure if just changing the burner to be with propane is actually making a massive difference than using wood. I know it's a lot better for the health of the people that are involved,
Sure.
not smelling and getting all the smoke inside their lungs, but I cannot be completely sure that we're not changing something that is drastic. I think it's tasty. I think we did a great job making this merge,
Hmm.
but it's I think still contentious to and there's still a lot of area for improvement. How about that?
Sure. There's in everything there is an area for improvement. And I don't know if you noticed David Elliott's comment, but he said, "Who is putting up with whom in this conversation?" And I don't think he was joking. Is the thing. He seems very serious, like the
I
way.
know,
Like,
I know, I know, I
yeah, that's
know, I know.
fair. That's fair, David. That's fair. Okay, so the Sombra mezcal is made with what kind of agave, Chava?
Espadín, agave angustifolia.
Okay, and why in the world would they use espadín? Is it the only agave you can use to make certified mezcal?
Nope, but it's a similar story as in Tequilana Beber.
I don't think
It's
it is, but you go
oh
ahead.
no,
I don't think so,
hey,
but
it's the most efficient, fastest growing agave in the south of Mexico.
nope,
What? What
nope.
what grows faster and has more efficiency than the tequila and or than the espadín? You're gonna say tequilana.
Yeah, the Blue Weber is more efficient. We already determined that. It grows faster. It's easier to farm. It's more dense with sugar. It has a higher bricks count. So why in the world don't they use Blue Weber to make mezcal in Oaxaca when you can use the rules say use whatever agave you want? Why is
Because
it not Blue Weber? Why is it Espadín?
mm, I mean, I could fall into the trap of saying that that's a traditional that was that was what they had at hand back then, but I know that's absolute bull. Like
It's
that's
not true.
yeah.
It's not true. So why is it? I think
Mm,
the simple answer is A, Lou is a contrarian, Des. B, the simple answer is they wanted to distinguish themselves. Well, if we use Blue Weber, either the people who were making the decisions about
mm,
what mezcal should become, kind of like what you're describing with the Mexican government, right? Like,
mm.
okay, being Mexican is about mariachis and it's about tequila, and I think maybe they saw that and said, okay, well, either okay, so mezcal will be about espadín. You can use anything, but really we're going to focus on espadín because it's easiest to grow, except for the blue Weber. But we don't want to be the blue Weber. That's tequila. I think it's that, or the Mexican government said that to them. Look, we'll give you
I
this. We'll let you have this thing called mezcal, but if you start focusing on the blue Weber, there's gonna be hell to pay.
okay. So I told you I had brought props, right, for this.
Yes, you did say
So
that.
I think the prop makes a little bit of sense right now. So I'm gonna
Okay, pull
start.
out your prop.
Okay, so first prop, it's what I call the Gringo European sandal. Right?
That's lovely. Okay.
Okay, so this is what I imagine when somebody tells me a sandal on a Gringo or a European, right?
Okay.
Then you have probably the most expensive. You know what a huarache is, right? The Mexican sandal.
Well, it's the thing that you eat for lunch,
No,
a
no, no,
huarache.
no. It's a sandal. It's the Mexican sandal. So the
Yeah, it's
most
from the Beach Boys song.
uh, I don't
If
know what.
everybody had a huarache sandals to a bushy, bushy blonde hairdo, Surfing USA. It's Surfing USA.
Okay, I have no idea, but
It's okay. Just keep going.
I'm gonna show you the Jalisco sandal, the most expensive sandal, the fine huarache that you can find. And this is your tequila beber. It's very broken because I use it a lot, but look, it's very classy, I think, or at least it's the most expensive huarache that I ever bought. And I'm gonna show you the Michoacan sandal.
What is okay, you're gonna have to explain yourself. I
Okay,
mean,
okay,
maybe everybody else gets it. I don't understand
wait.
what your point
And,
is,
and now
Chava.
I'm
Okay.
now I'm gonna show you the Durango sandal. Okay.
That's not a sandal, that's a shoe. But what's your point?
My point, these are absolutely different cultures with different tastes and with different interests. I think it's like you might say that it was just a marketing trick, but I do think that they have different palates and different interests, and they're not only into this for efficiency. So I think that honestly, just the Oaxacan people were like, you know what? Cool with your tequila and a beber. That's a flavor we don't really enjoy. And then the Guerrero guys were like, cool with your espadin and your tequila. And we like cupriata. And the Guerrero guys the same. And the Durango guys said the
Oh.
cenizo.
Oh. I don't know if it's accurate, but I like it. It sounds good as a theory.
Well, it works in sandals.
Hmm. Okay, so since we're talking about Tequilana being the most efficient, Espadín basically being the second most efficient, but maybe it's really a difference in taste. But what are we talking about in terms of actual years to reach maturity, right?
6 to 8 in the espadín world, right?
Yeah, and I've always heard like actually lately I've been hearing 8 to 10 for the Blue Weber, but I know it's more like 3 to maybe 7.
Okay, yeah, that sounds accurate. And
Yeah.
then cenizo, because they're also drinking a cenizo. That is that correct?
Cenizo. We haven't gotten to Cenizo yet. We should be at the if we're done. Are we done with Sombra?
Well, what else is there to say? I mean, I like the guys, of course. I worked for them. It was a project I invested a lot of time into. I think I, something really funny. We haven't talked about sustainability in these last well, 2 sessions and a half, and I think that most of the efforts that are done in the mezcal world, or when people speak out sustainability, they speak about replanting agaves, which I find extremely funny because that just really means. I mean, there's layers to that, but
Sure.
it's mostly like when I talk about sustainability, I'm gonna make sure that I have raw materials for my industry. That's the
Right.
weirdest thing ever. It's like if
Well, it's weird until you think about the fact that in order to sustain your company, you need the raw materials. So it literally is the definition of sustainability.
absolutely, but it's like if a mango juice company was saying we are a sustainable company, we plant a mango tree for every mango we use.
Which keeps them sustainable. I think that word sustainable is
Yeah, yeah,
misunderstood, and I think Esteban Morales, the guy who owns La Venenosa, really hit the nail on the head when he said we shouldn't be talking about sustainability. We should be talking about best practices.
correct. And I think that that is what I liked about the Sombra Kids. I think their project is maybe 10 years away from saying for having zero impact, but at least they're addressing.
Z- Zero environmental impact.
Yeah, yeah, if that's possible, that's actually very, very complicated to say. But I think they could minimize their impact drastically in many ways. But they are researching the areas. For example, Vinaces. I never pronounce it correctly. How do you say it?
Vinases. We'll just
Vinaces.
yeah, we'll just say vinases. And so what that is, it's the liquid left in the still at the end of the distillation, right?
Exactly, which is absolutely nasty. If you throw that into a body of water, I'm not going to go into details, but you wreck it. You destroy that body of water. And you create a lot of those per distillation. Actually, most of your tank after you're done with distillation is not alcohol, it's not the good stuff, it's Vinaces. And you have to throw
Somebody
it.
told, were you the one who was telling me it's like 5 to 1 for every liter of actual drinkable mezcal, you've got 5 liters, or is it 4 liters
I
of?
can't remember the exact numbers, but it's something crazy like that. It's
Yeah.
if it's not that, it's something very close to it. And nobody's talking about it. I have not seen one brand that says for every four businesses that we throw into the river, we do blah.
Right. Well, okay, but actually, Sombra does talk about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I
Sombra
like
does,
those
and
kids.
La Locura does. There are other brands that I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there are these brands.
But I would like to make a fine point on that. The
Please.
way that a small distillery has to deal with that is extremely different to how a medium to large distillery like Sombra has to deal with it. If Lalo, he just got his businesses and drove on his truck and was just spraying a little bit of it all around the town, that would have really minimal impact. Like that he could be using
because
that
because he's just not producing a lot of mezcal, well, of
exactly.
agave spirits, because
But
he
you
doesn't
have
certify.
thousands of liters of this stuff going out of your drains every day. It gets a little bit more complicated. And
Right.
what Sombra has been doing, it's basically using it as water to make adobe bricks. And that's how they neutralize, because it's actually chemically is very complex. So if you want to use some sort of chemical way of neutralizing it, you'll be spending a lot of money and a lot of tanks, very big tanks that are very expensive, and a lot of pumps and a lot of electricity. And there's a lot of discussions that say like, okay, yeah, you're neutralizing this, but if you're using all this electricity to neutralize it, is
Well,
that Oh, it's very complicated.
Well, it is, but so this is the experiment that we were talking to him about before the pandemic started, where we were going to. We've got a guy here in Chicago who says that he can take the vinasas and he can do a secondary fermentation that actually it ferments them back into potable water.
Yes, but the deal with that, it's the investment you need in tanks.
But that's just tanks. It's like, but it's not like chemicals, and it's not right.
But it's tanks and time. So how
Yeah.
long? Yeah, like we'll talk about this in detail. I think this is fascinating, but it's really complicated. There's ways to deal with this, and I think the best way to do this is have various strategies at once. Have a little bit of what you're saying with this guy. Have a little bit in the bricks. Have a little bit of that is evaporating maybe. Uh, so stuff, for example, China is saying that the glass on the bottle, it's half the amount of glass that it's usually in other bottles. I think that's cool. That's a super simple thing that you can do, and
Hmm.
that it's definitely reducing the amount of energy you need to be melting glass, and even the weight
And
that you're
shipping.
carrying across
Yeah.
the world. Yeah, there's a lot of nice tricks and fun stuff that you can do, but I think they are one of the few. They were the only kids that hired me to think about this stuff. I was literally hired, and they will be like, "Okay, kid, go there, think about this, come with a budget for stuff. We'll talk about it." So that's why I like those guys. That's it.
And, and it's good mezcal.
That's good, mezcal.
Okay, we've already eaten up half the show,
Jesus
and we've
Christ.
just
Okay,
done two. Well, I
look,
guess two. That's not so bad. Okay. Well,
it's because we line up rather complex stuff. I
well,
mean,
no, I don't line up anything complex. Nobody would ever accuse me of that.
okay.
Okay. Okay, so number three up, let's go to Michoacan, the neighbor to Jalisco, and have the La Luna Mezcal Cupriata.
Yes. So you know what I'm wearing right now? This is Michoacan, and I was born in Michoacan, so this really touches my heart. Uh,
So much of this is just so personal to you today. It's
it is,
nice.
it is. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I think you just connected this with my. I think you did this on purpose.
That's what I do, everything on purpose. Nothing's
Yeah,
ever a
sure.
mistake. Okay, so what is it about the Cupriata that is the agave, the predominant agave that they use in the state of Michoacan? Why?
Actually, I find it extremely confusing. Because I'm from Michoacan, and my family work in avocado, and the farming industry of Michoacan has been very industrialized for many years, and Cupriata is not that efficient.
Okay, so what does that mean? It's not that efficient. How
Well,
long does it
actually,
take to reach maturity? What do the sugars look like?
I believe it's something crazy. Like it can go up to 12 years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
That's crazy, and it's not even as efficient while you're working with it as espadin. It's definitely more than 10 kilos per liter. Is that correct?
Well, I would have guessed so, but again, it's one of these things that I hate to put a pin in it and say this is true. It's
Yeah,
going to
because
take, right? Because there's somebody who can do it efficiently and get a
yeah,
liter out of 10 kilos as opposed to 15.
and I haven't been in the context, but just from the stories that I heard, I'm pretty sure that it's significantly less efficient than espadin. And I do not understand why in Michoacan, being it such a intensively industrialized farming context, they will go for something like that.
Well, okay, so here's a theory. Here's a theory. Maybe it's because of that. I can't remember who said that I'm a contrarian, but I'm going to go with that. So perhaps it's because, when I visit Michoacan, it really does feel to me like Wisconsin. It's like the Wisconsin of um,
You've said this
of
before, and
Mexico.
I don't know if I approve. You're talking
Uh,
about my hometown, Lou.
I love Wisconsin. So it feels to me like Wisconsin, and it's got all these beautiful green rolling hills and all these lakes, and it really like it's made for agriculture.
Yep.
But so at that point, does agriculture become such a driver in the local economy that you cannot afford to eat up land with something that takes 12 years to reach maturity?
unless
So
it's land you don't really care about.
because it's not used for anything else, and there's not like from what I've seen of Michoacan, there's not a lot of that. Like most of it, you can grow stuff on. So
Hmm.
so if you follow that logic, like maybe there's not a lot of espadín because nobody's farming agave. I know the La Luna guys are farming cupriata now, but they're not farming the rest of the stuff. Everything else comes from the wild.
Yes, and that makes a ton of sense. My father, when I started working with mezcal, oh, why? And this is great. They're asking why does this taste so different to all the others? My sandals example. Why are the
Because
Michoacan sandals so different?
it's the
Because
flavor profile.
and it's the people, the culture in Michoacan. So actually,
Well, you know what?
what?
We also have to say, like, in terms of what we're drinking, the order that we're drinking it, La Luna is the first thing where it's handmade, right? This La Luna Cupriata is handmade.
All of them have been handmade. Well,
No.
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Okay, so how are they milling the agave at Sombra? How are they milling the agave
Oh,
at Grande Vejo at Nome 1414? Right? It's machines. It's machines, and it's like a seriously industrial machine at Gnome 1414. Not a big deal. I'm not saying that makes it bad, but it is an industrial machine. And then you get to Sombra, and they've got the Tahona, that stone wheel that's pulled around and mills the cooked agave. But in their case, rather than using a horse or a donkey or an ox to pull that wheel, it's this beautiful little solar powered engine which is going to, I would contend, going to make it more consistent, right? It's not like the horse is going to stop every
mm,
once in a while and swat away a fly, and it's going to be inconsistent every single time, whereas this machine is going to be relatively consistent. But here, you're literally using axes to mill the cooked cupriata in Michoacan for La Luna. They're using axes and doing it by hand, and it's going to be significantly less consistent. And when you've got things that are, this goes back to what you were diverting us on with the cooking of the agave, the still, right, the wood firing, where you're suggesting the inconsistencies
mm.
um, in how it's heating the still up, the wood fire as opposed to the steam, is going to create different flavors.
And not only that, also in La Luna, and they're asking if they put their shoes in. No, they don't. They never put their huaraches in. And La Luna, the alembic for La Luna that they use there, it's so different as well. Because both in Grando Viejo and in Sombra, it's either 100% copper or, as you said in the other tequila case, they use stainless steel. Here, it's copper and wood. So they have a wood
Oh, that's
condenser.
a good point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that big old,
And,
it's huge.
and it's a conic. So in distillation technology, the distillation technology they're using for the cupriata, it's tremendously different to what they're using in the other two spirits. I would even venture to say that the other two are European technology based, whereas the steel that they use in Michoacan, it's called a Filipino steel, which there's a whole of legends and all that about where this design of steel came from. There's not a clean cut answer to that. The only clean cut answer is it's very different, and it's sort of a mutant.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, and there's like a million. If we had a cupriata from somebody else in Michoacan, it wouldn't taste exactly like this. It would be, and in fact, let's move on to the next one because it's another cupriata, right? We're going to do the Amaras.
Oh
We've got
yeah,
Mezcal Amaras. And this is out of, I think I figured out how I've been screwing up the pronunciation of Guerrero. It's because like I've been trying to get that first R into the gu part, and it needs to be Guerrero. Guerrero. That's better, right?
Guerrero. Yeah, yeah, you're getting
But
close
for
to
me,
it.
it's better.
Yeah, for you, it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so here we've got the exact same agave that you just had, processed in yeah, in the exact same way. In fact, no,
They no,
the,
they
the
have different alembics.
oh, do they really?
I will believe so. Yeah, in
Well,
Guerrero,
the
of course. They
Oh
don't
yeah,
do the
yeah, that's
Filipino
true. It's
style.
that
Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, it's not that big dish. That's true. But copper stills, and they're using the Tahona to mill. They're not doing it by hand. But still, cupriata and from
Yep.
Guerrero. Um,
Yes, and that's gonna taste. I think that's amazing that they have these two expressions side by side. Same agave, absolutely different cultures. I did not have a sandal from Guerrero. They're really cool. They're very different.
have you had? I know you've had a lot of different agave spirits out of Guerrero, but what strikes me is that how many of them are cupriatas, and they've got different kinds of cupriatas there, right? Like you'll see something called zacatora, and then something called papalote, and they're just different kinds of, kind of like when you look at the Karwinskis out of Oaxaca. You'll see something's a Madrequiche, sometimes it's a Bequiche, but they're still scientifically the same species.
Well, there are still scientifically the same species. I think that it's just a matter of time before they're starting being characterized as different subspecies. There hasn't been enough funding for people to go there and start
Right, right.
actually. I think actually in that sense the people in the towns are more sophisticated than the scientists themselves, because
Hmm.
these people have been looking at these plants for so long that they can know how they are different, versus the scientists haven't had a systemized way of being able to point out their differences. So I think that's going to happen sooner than later.
Hmm. But so my question though is, have you ever found a potatorum expression out of Guerrero? Have you ever had an angustifolia expression out of Guerrero? Like that
I've
would
had
be
a,
a
I yeah, I've had an angustifolia, an
you have,
espadin,
okay, 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 but no
and
blue Weber.
no blue Weber, but the espadin that I had from Guerrero tasted like I will have never guessed in a million years that it was an espadin. It tasted like something absolutely different, and it's environment, it's different culture with different technologies making these things. As Tina is pointing out, the one in Michoacan has a funk that the Amaras doesn't have. I wish I had the answers. I wish I had $10 million to go to each one of these distilleries and measure the hell out of each one, and being able to know what exactly makes what. I think this is the really beautiful part about what we're doing. We get puzzles that we don't like. We're missing a lot of pieces to these puzzles, and we have
Right,
to imagine them. It's puzzles that we have to finish off with our imagination. So
right.
yeah, and
So,
Guerrero, to be honest, is one of my favorite areas. It's for me, it's crazy because it's one of the ones that have the least amount of diversity in agaves, but the most amount of diversity in flavors. I don't know if you experience the same, but anything.
I, if I go to a place that is serving agave spirits and they've got something from Guerrero, I will always get it. I
I've
will
I've never
always try it.
I've never had something bad from Guerrero actually. If I go to a
I
restaurant
hmm
that I find very dubious and I'm like, I hate everything around this place, and they have a Guerrero spirit, I will start liking it, and most likely it's gonna be good.
I've only had one where I was really disappointed, but otherwise, yeah, I'm with you. Batting 100, otherwise 1,000, batting 1,000. Um, and I have the same reaction to San Luis Potosí.
Oof, which I don't absolutely, which
Really?
yeah, no, the salmianas, I've
Yeah,
had
so Salmiana is the and you're not have we didn't have that on the list tonight. I don't know why I didn't add that. We could have done six because I really like Salmiana. But Salmiana is what you're going to see predominant in
San
San
Luis
Luis
Potosí,
Potosí. Yeah.
and I usually find it to be over fermented. I used to have to
Hmm.
find it to be
When you say over
way
like acidic, sour?
acidic, and like it feels acidic in your pancita, like it hits your stomach really acidically, and then just the mouth for me, I don't quite taste the agave, I just taste over fermentation.
Oh,
and,
that's
and
so weird. When I think of those San Luis Potosí Salmianas, the only thing that comes to my mind are poblanos.
poblano, yeah, maybe
They
the
like
poblanos you
poblano
have over
chiles.
there. Yeah, the poblanos you get in Chicago, man, not the poblanos I get here. Not the poblanos I get in Puebla.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Um,
So, do you
wow.
have any notes on how the Amaras was produced,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just said,
that?
yeah, it's the wood fired. So it's cooked in the underground earthen oven. It's milled using the Tahona, but an actual horse-drawn Tahona. And then it is fermented open air in wooden barrels and distilled in wood-fired copper pot stills. The interesting thing about this is I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think that they credit the producers on the bottle, the actual mezcaleros. And yeah, and I know from the tasting that we did with Luis from
Mhm.
Mezcal Amaras back in, was that September? I think it was
I can't
September.
remember. Some time in the past before people were using face masks.
Yeah, so he told us that it was the sons of Don Moises. Don Moises, who's like a really he was killed in, I think it was 2015, um, by the drug cartels in Guerrero. But he's a legendary mescalero, the guy who really started Sansecan. Yeah, this guy who was making these beautiful spirits with 3-year-old Capone agaves. He had cut the quiote off of the ripe agave as it was trying to reproduce, and then he left it in the fields for 3 years.
Which is
Three
unheard of.
years. It's
Nobody does that.
crazy.
You have to be insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and it's
Wh- wh-
delicious.
which is also maybe a fine note also about Guerrero. All of these places we're mentioning in Mexico, most of them you can road trip around them and you can go
Mm.
visit producers very easily, and people are going to be really nice, and you're not going to be scared at all. Maybe the highway is going to be challenging, but that stops. That's all of it. Guerrero, I have never been to the area where these guys produce some of the spirits I love the most, because you have to ask permission, you have to talk to a bunch of people to know you're going to be safe. And if one day, and this has happened to me twice, 2 days before I was supposed to go, they call you and they tell you, we're sorry, things are difficult right now in the area, you cannot come. And they're protecting you. So, this, I think there's also sort of a great mistake about Guerrero, because have you ever been to a palenque there?
No, in fact, I was supposed to go and visit Don Moises the month after he was killed, or 2 months after he was killed. We had plans. Connie and I had plans to drive there from Oaxaca, um, and that certainly caused us to not take that trip.
Yep. So it's an unfortunate part of Mexico. I think that that's another phase of it. But no doubt they produce some of the most beautiful things we have access to here. No,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in fact, like there's a whole bunch of Guerreran. Did I say, is that how you say it? Guerreran?
Guerrerense.
Guerrerense
What are you
spirits.
trying to say?
There's a bunch of spirits that were made in Guerrero that are going to be coming to the USA
Oh
very, very
yes,
shortly from
yes, yes, yes.
Malbien. Yeah, our friends at Malbien, Ben, our friend at Malbien, Ben Scott, went down there, right? Like,
Crazy, crazy kid.
yeah, well, yeah, I don't know about crazy. I used to think crazy. Now I think just bold.
No, 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 actually, but he asked permission. I was supposed to go with him the second time, and they
Oh,
told us that we couldn't go, and he didn't go. So
no,
not
okay,
crazy at all. No,
okay,
he's asking all the right people permission. He was just lucky, really, that when
gotcha.
he was supposed to go, things were chill.
The first time.
Yep,
Second time, not so much. So yeah, so he went down and made deals with a bunch of these really legendary producers, and is bringing it all in under that Malbien label, and I'm really looking forward to that.
yeah, yeah, and this is crazy because most people in America that I know, they've never had access to this because it's only available in Mexico.
Right,
Right? Like, I
right.
mean, what you're drinking right now comes from that, but these guys are really, I don't know, they're like the dream team, the basketball dream team of the Olympic games, I think.
Boy, I'm sorry. You also just reminded me of something else I want to talk about when we talk about Guerrero. It really, you're not wrong. It really is this legendary place of mystique that we like that
El
just draws.
Dorado.
Yeah. So okay. So when people talk about mezcal, so many people who aren't in the know assume it's just the yellow stuff that has the worm in it, right? Because you can still get mezcals on the market in the USA that has that gusano in it, the worm. Speaking of which, if you are a comic book reader, you want to check out El Gusano #0, which just hit the market yesterday. Anyway, so you've got mezcal with the gusano in it, and it's not what you want to drink because it tastes weird. It's the theory, some people say. But then you go to Guerrero, and their tradition in some
Oh.
communities is to put in, I don't know how to say it in Spanish, but it's the stink bug. It's what we would call a stink bug. What do you guys call it?
Oh, I can't remember the name. It's because this is also very alien to me. Actually, I was introduced to this by una chinche. We call them chinches.
Chinches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you were introduced by Damian and Raquel, right? Our friends
yeah,
at El
yeah, yeah.
Tigre.
And I was introduced to Damian and Raquel through you. Lou Bank introduced Mexicans to Mexicans.
That's what I do. So, their bottles are just some of the most beautiful bottles I've ever seen. And for the longest time, I would not buy a bottle of El Tigre Mezcal because every bottle is hand painted. And I thought anybody who had to spend that much time making the bottle beautiful, the stuff in the bottle can't be any good. And then it turned out that one of my friends here from Chicago, he marries a woman from Mexico City, and and we've been hanging out for a few years at that point. I went to their wedding, which I think was in Acapulco, and
Yes.
um, and we're here in Chicago having dinner one night, drinking mezcal as we do every time we get together. And she says, "Lou, did I ever tell you I've got a friend who owns a mezcal brand, and it's the best mezcal?" And I don't think you have ever told me that. And she said, "Yeah, yeah, we went to high school together. You should get some of it. It's really good." And she tells me it's El Tigre, and I thought, "Oh, fine. I'll buy a bottle. It's $20, whatever." And and I got it, and it is mind-blowingly delicious. It's one of those circumstances where the bottle is as beautiful as the spirit.
Our sound engineer got really mad at me because we went to visit them at their house, and you left at 9 p.m. because the time you
It's
go
my
to sleep.
bedtime. Yeah.
But everything we're drinking was so beautiful that I just couldn't leave. And our sound engineer was telling me, like, Chava, we have to go. These people need to rest. You need to exit the premises right now. And I just couldn't stop. They have really good stuff. It's delicious.
So Raquel was staying at our place. Um, what was the Gusano that was just released? Okay, so hang on a second, Tina. I'll get back to that stuff. So Raquel from El Tigre Mezcal was staying at my place on her way to Detroit one time, and so she held a little tasting for my friends and myself of the agave spirits, not certified agave spirits that she'd brought with her. And when I wasn't paying attention, I started drinking one she had poured for me, and I was blown away at how good it was. And it's the one I would never drink when she poured it for me because it had the stink bug in it, and it's delicious, and it tastes like Dr. Peppery, and so it's this beautiful spirit. It's got a bug in it. It changed my mind about, is it okay to drink mezcal with anything in it, with a bug in it? Well, you know what? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. But
If
here's the
it's good,
thing.
it's good. If it's
Yeah,
good, it's good.
yeah, but it's not just the bug. It's not just the bug. They put the
It's
bug in. In
crazy.
fact, the
This
bug
is crazy.
doesn't even affect the flavor that much. They tell me that really the bug is in there to remind them that this is one of the bottles where they gather the stink bugs that come out once a year. They gather them up and then they
Jesus.
agitate them in these giant barrels and they start urinating. And there's a funnel at the bottom, and all the stink bug urine goes into this separate container, and they put a little bit of stink bug urine into this bottle and a little bit of stink bug urine into this bottle, and then they throw in the stink bug to remember, oh yeah, that's the good one that has stink bug urine in it.
Which it sounds extremely unpleasant, but it's delicious.
Yeah.
Again, And why does that happen? Why? Like, have we researched this? No. Do we know why? No, it's just delicious.
And like, who was the first guy to figure that one out? Well, let's get a bunch because you can't just get one stink bug. That's not a lot of urine. Right? You're like maybe that's its guts. You don't know. Somebody figured that out. It must be the same guy who figured out that if you just put the corn into the ash, it becomes digestible and healthier for you.
talking about crazy tasting notes. Imagine you're making a tasting and you're like, yeah, I find some chinche urine tasting notes in this mezcal.
Which it turns out tastes like Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Anyway,
David Elliott, you're correct. Crazy does age to bold. God bless it. Tina, timeout. Okay, we just threw Malbien from Guerrero, right? So yes, Malbien will be release. I thought we were clear about. I thought I was. I don't know.
you speak
Agave
too fast,
spirits
Lou.
that
You
were
speak.
made. I do. I really.
Yeah, I think so.
Agave spirits that were made in Guerrero will be coming out really, really soon from Malbien. I think it's like in the next 6 months, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, yeah, there's a comic book that we published yesterday that I wrote called El Gusano, the boy from the agave. And it was illustrated by Jorge Fornes from Spain, which is why, even though his name is Spanish, nothing actually looks like Mexico in the comic book, but it's beautiful. You can get this on Comixology. It's available virtually for 99 cents. You can read the comic book. Did I cover
Lovely,
everything, Tina? Oh, yes. You did see that. Look at that. Okay, we're done. You
lovely.
don't, yeah. Okay, so
Really good at
now,
this.
now we're down to the last one, and we have all sorts of time left. We could have meandered. We did meander. Okay, so
We did a lot. Yeah.
yeah. So the last of the five expressions, which I'm sure everybody's already completed, because you'd be crazy not to, as long as we're taking, is the cenizo. It's the cenizo
Ah, yeah, yeah.
from Durango. Cenizo from Durango. And the boy, I think we've got three different ones because nobody could get the
Mm.
same one. So if you're at Calavera, you're drinking Origen Reyes. Close.
Origen raíz,
Sure. And if
which is
you're
good.
in Santa Cruz and you picked up your sets from Copal, you're drinking de Rombas.
Derrumbes.
If they didn't have ours, oh, and if you're if you are wait, what did I just say? Copal Calavera. So if you're at Mission Cantina from Seattle. See, this is
There
what
you
it
go.
does to me in Seattle. You're drinking the Colonial Hacienda Dolores.
Hacienda Dolores.
Dolores.
Dolores. Okay, there.
Dolores. Close enough.
Yeah.
So all three different ones. So and the two commonalities are Cenizo is the kind of agave, Durango is the state in which it's made. Now, what can you tell me about Cenizo, Chava?
Well, first I want to talk about Durango, even before I talk about Cenizo, because you invited me to Durango, and you were the reason why I visited for the first time.
Oh, that was
And
more than a year ago. That was
that
just
was so
over a
long
year
ago.
ago.
And the joke I started making to people, it's I don't know any Mexicans that have been to Durango, and the Mexicans that have been to Durango don't tell you they've been to Durango.
And why would that be the case? I don't. It's funny, but I don't understand the
It's
why.
sort of an invisible state. It's
Hmm.
it's sort of a place like why would you go there? There's cows and there's a lot of empty land. And just until very recently, we understood there was agave spirits. But I don't even I will probably bet good money that if you were to ask the whole Mexican population if they know that they make mezcal in Durango, 89% will tell you that no, that's crazy. In Durango they just make burritos. That's it.
That's funny. But it sort of reminds me of it's like the North Dakota or the Wyoming of Mexico.
That doesn't mean anything to me, but sure.
Okay. Well, just think of North Dakota as the Durango of the USA.
Okay, so invisible place. You have no reasons to go there until you realize
Wide open lands, a lot of cattle, people in cowboy hats.
crazy mountains, good meat. It was good meat. A lot of big trucks with very loud banda music.
Hmm.
All the things that I think a lot of city people don't quite appreciate. But they do have a extremely diverse set of agave population. Actually, I was researching a little bit about Durango a few days ago, and do you know that in some area that it's in the border of Sonora, it's in the border of another state, they have a diversity, like they have the same diversity of bats that the jungle in the south of Mexico, that the Chiapas jungle in the south. So
I, and this is significant why I don't understand the
well,
like
because you go to Durango and it looks like what you have behind you. Like it seems actually this was taken in Durango.
this was
Like
taken in Durango.
you wouldn't guess that there's a lot of things going on. That there's a lot of
Hmm.
natural diversity. That there's a lot of
Hmm.
things going on. It looks very boring and flat, and it turns out that there's actually all these natural small reserves that are havens of diversity. And one of the things that really thrives in this environment it's agave because it's very dry, it's very flat, and you have a lot of bats which act as the pollinators. Does that word exist?
Yeah, that
Pollinator.
works. Yeah, that worked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pollinators for agave because bees cannot survive in that environment. Can you see a bee flying around there?
Uh, yeah.
No. Get out of here.
Well, maybe bees aren't as resilient as I think. I don't
No, they're
know.
not. They're super
Okay.
fragile entities. But the thing is, cenizo happens to grow there. And as we were saying, in Jalisco, they have their tequilana. In Oaxaca, they have their espadín. In Michoacan and Guerrero, they have their cupreatas. The most used agave in this region is cenizo, which is agave durangensis. And why do you think that's the case, Lou?
Is it the case because it takes the longest to reach maturity, and they are just as contrarian as I am?
I think it's just because it's very freaking delicious.
You know what? I would agree with that. Like, it really doesn't like I've certainly seen other agaves there that are unique to that region that reach maturity sooner than Cenizo.
Really? Like which one?
I don't remember, but I've definitely seen them.
Masparillo, Tepemete. Okay, well,
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah. Well, hell, it's so tall, right?
Oh no, Satol takes forever. Well, maybe. Takes forever. Satol takes forever.
No, it doesn't. So tall? I thought so
Yeah.
tall was like 6, 7 years.
And Cenizo?
Cenizo, I thought was like 10, 12 years.
Yeah, I'm not. That's the other thing with Durango that it's whatever you say about it, it's such a wild guess because it's so big that it might be in some region
Mm,
that being the case.
fair.
In other part, I something just happened to me the other day. This guy sent me a lamparillo, which is a agave species that it's also I
He sent you
maybe
the spirit made from the Lamparillo.
yeah from the lamparillo.
Mm.
And I have two other examples of lamparillo at my house made in Nombre de Dios, which is like say the Matatlan, like the mezcal capital of Durango. And so we could say that those are more classic expressions. And this lamparillo that this guy sent me, that it's about 4 hours away from it, it tasted like a whole different world. Like
Hmm.
it was so hard to actually distinguish that it was the same thing. So talk about Durango, it's really complicated because you have to know the area very well because there's such massive differences from one space to the other. No?
Yeah. You know, the other thing I want to point out when we're talking about Durango is uh, so there's a tradition there that coincidentally two of the spirits that we're drinking wouldn't have been produced this way, right? So if you're in Seattle and if you're in Oakland, you're drinking respectively the Dolores and the Orion Reyes,
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah,
and
that's
and
great.
both of them are made in a very what I would call Oaxacan style,
Hmm.
right? Now, I believe the Dolores they use a machine for the milling, and I
Hmm.
believe that they're using a Tahona with Raíz. But the Durumbas, on the other hand, if you're in Santa Cruz and you got your set from Copal, the Durumbas is actually following I shouldn't say actually is representative of what you would normally see there. And the big difference is that you're milling with an axe, kind of the way that you are in Michoacan, but then you're fermenting in
Mm.
in these things that they, what do they call them? Coffins?
Ataúdes, coffins, yeah.
Yeah, that we're so used to seeing these big wooden fermenters, like the pine fermenters that look like giant barrels, half barrels, and that's certainly what Dolores used and what Orion Reyes used. Um, but most of the places you visit will have these little coffins that are like these rectangles that are built into the ground or sometimes into like poured cement. But the interesting thing to me is like you do that in order to maintain a more consistent temperature, right?
Yeah, because the temperature changes in Durango are insane. You are basically in the desert. So during the day gets extremely hot and during the night gets really, really cold. And if you don't protect your yeasts and your microbiome that is happening in the fermentation tank from those crazy transitions, you can kill them and you can end up with a lot of agave juice that never was transformed to alcohol because there was not enough yeast or microbes there to do that transition. So you're trying to save the lives of your yeasts by
Yeah.
keeping a more consistent temperature.
And I wonder if that isn't also the reason for the shape of the fermenter, because if you think
Oof.
about about the ratio of surface area to depth on your fermenter, the the quantity of surface area for these coffins to the depth is going to be far greater than it is in one of these giant barrels.
Well, it's going to be less. The exposed surface is less.
Oh, I disagree. I think it's significantly more. I mean, if you compare the amount of surface that's in a barrel to the amount of surface that's in the coffin, you're right. But if you then do the ratio of
Yeah,
depth
yeah. How
to the
much?
surface, you've got significantly more square footage up top than you do below when you're talking about these coffins than you do with the barrels.
I I think it might depend. I I
Think about the canoas. Think about the canoas, because that's in essence what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff there that is going on. I think it's uh I've been thinking about this so much these last few days. Actually, I've been
Why are you thinking so much about Durango? What's going on?
I've been thinking a lot about fermentation, and you've sent me a couple articles, and I found some
Which,
other stuff.
have you figured out what I'm doing yet? Like, I just don't read anything anymore. I just send it to you.
I know, and I think you're not the only person that is starting to do that. I think I actually catched someone that literally took something I wrote and put her into her blog as a post as if she had wrote it. She made it, but I anyway. I've been thinking so much about how the amount of ferment that you have in a container can affect the final outcome. It's not the same to
Oh,
have 1,000 liters of something and that environment happening like have a huge container than having a small one. What I've been
oh,
trying.
without question. I mean, if you just think about the lactobacillus, I think I said that right, right? Like, the more depth you have, the less oxygen is going to get to it, the more robust that particular bacteria is going to be sitting at that bottom of that fermenter, because that's where it thrives. That's the red sun to, I'm sorry, that's the yellow sun to Superman.
Well, that's one part, and then the other part that I've been thinking it's when we were designing stuff for Sombra, what we did was that each vessel will match each alembic. So each fermentation tank will be thrown entirely into an alembic.
And all,
To
and all you
sorry,
were thinking about was efficiency, like
no,
one
no, this.
ferment. Oh,
Well, no, we were thinking. What we were thinking more, it's you have this extremely crazy environment happening, and if you chop it up in pieces, you might be losing certain things, and therefore, for example, having a lot of off flavors on the bottom of the container, and you're concentrating all that into one distill, whereas you can throw the whole thing and maybe they balanced it out. You have
hmm.
the whole complexity. You have your shot of complexity and throw it in, and you had the whole picture instead of having different parts of the picture and not really being able to control what you're scratching out of it. Because
Hmm.
most mezcaleros they have 1,000 liter, 1,000 kilos vessel, and they have a 250 liter alembic. So
right.
they're chopping that fermentation into four parts, and they don't. So I've been thinking a lot about how how how, how significant is that? Because in Durango, I think what happens is that chopping works differently. It's smaller containers, so I think you're chopping into less parts the whole picture. And I think a part of why I like
Hmm.
so much the cenizas that come from there, I find them tremendously complex. I think it's because you're having this whole picture of of the fermentation. And I think honestly, I think one of the biggest, and it was by accident, really, sort of, one of the biggest like good things that we did at Sombra was that just let's get the whole picture of the fermentation. But again, I'm not absolutely sure of this, and I would love to do testings by side by side.
Well, as a matter of fact, it's interesting you say that, Chava.
Oh Lord.
Right?
Okay.
So I just did this set up this deal today with La Venenosa and Flask Fine Wines, where Esteban Morales of La Venenosa came upon a raiciero whose name I'm not going to remember because
Raicilla for
a guy who
uh,
makes raicilla.
Raicilla, which is another type of agave spirit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
He came upon this raciero in Jalisco, who in 1999 and 2000, there was this glut of blue Weber agave, where several years before, like 4, 5, 6 years before, there was a shortage, so everybody planted a ton of it, and as a result, when this all came to maturity in 99 and 2000, people it was more expensive for them to harvest the agave than they could possibly sell it for, and so they were just letting agave rot in the fields, and so this raiciero, one of his campesino friends, one of his farmer friends, said, just take whatever you want. This guy filled up his truck and went back, filled up his truck, went back, filled up his truck, went back, and then he turned it into this beautiful raicilla, this beautiful single distillation blue Weber spirit from rural Jalisco. And, because again, there was a glut on the market, nobody ever bought the spirit. So, so by the time Esteban rolls up on him last year, he had 5,000 liters of this stuff still sitting in glass garrafones, glass like 20 liter,
What?
20-liter containers. Like
Five
what is that?
thousand
200.
liters?
He had 250 of these glass containers that have been sitting forever in his little storage shed. So they're starting to release this stuff, but in order to make batches large enough to bottle to make sense, right? To send like 2,000 liters to Japan, and right, they're blending these 20-liter garrafones, and
No.
I convinced them, hey, how about this? Take three of these garrafones, which would have come, to your point, right? Like I'm wrapping back to the, like, see, I'm
Yeah,
bringing
yeah,
it back
yeah,
home
yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah.
which would have come from different parts of the fermentation and the distillation. They would have like happened at different times,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
they
yeah,
would have
yeah.
been stored while in the same place in different parts of the place because there's 250 of these things. So the flavors in each of these garrafones, even though they were made by the same guy at the same time using the same agave, exact same everything, except when they came out of the fermenter and the still. That's the only difference, and such different flavors. So they're going to bottle them up. They took three of these 20-liter garrafones, and they're going to bottle them up in 200 milliliter flasks. And you buy a set of these. You get the three flasks, same distillation, right? Just different times in the distillation that you can taste side by side from Flask Fine Wines. You pre-order now. You have to get your pre-orders in before 5 p.m. Friday of next week, right?
Jesus.
And
And
for I think it's 99.95, 99.95, you get your three flasks of these beautiful side-by-side expressions that are going to illustrate this thing that you're talking about, Chava.
so you have whatever time it took for the agave to grow. That in the case of raicilla, which is the species that they use for raicilla.
No, no, this is Blue Weber.
Oh, this blue wares.
It's
Okay,
the
so
Blue Weber that was in the field.
okay, so you take 5 to 7 years
Sure.
of growing time, and then
Yep.
you have how long do you say?
20 years. It was in 2000 that he made this. 20 years.
So these started production 25 years ago when I was 6 years old. When I was learning in kindergarten how to pronounce piano in English instead of piano in Spanish.
That made no sense to me, but it was
I know.
beautiful.
Anyway,
Okay, I think we
crazy.
should wrap it
Oh
up.
yes.
If anybody has any questions, and I'm not seeing any, then I'm just going to say thank you so much to everybody who attended. Thank you so much to our partners at Copal in Santa Cruz, at Calavera in Oakland, and Mission Cantina in Seattle. Join us next Thursday evening when we'll be talking Pachuga.
We're talking pechugas.
Next week is
Heret-
all Pachuga.
Heretic. Okay.
Oh, can't
Cool.
drop something like that without a link. I'm guessing, David, that you're referring, David, that you're referring to the trio of Blue Weber flasks. I can't give you a link because it literally doesn't exist yet. We just set this up today, and tomorrow, if you go to flaskfinewines.com, sign up for their newsletter because they're going to email it out not next week, tomorrow they're going to email out the offer. If you want to jump on it, then that's how you get it. Yes, we are going to be talking about chicken breasts next week, and we're going to talk about turkey breasts, and we're going to talk about lizard breasts, and we're going to talk about what that tastes like when you drop it into a still with some agave spirits.
Yep. Pechugas.
Okay.
Lovely.
Chava, lovely seeing you. Thank you,
Always.
everybody. Catch you happy campers next week.
Adiosito. Bye.